Well, this one's a bit out there, huh? So, after playing Project Stardust on Roblox not too long ago, for some reason it just reignited my love for giant space battles, and because of that, I decided to go play one of the games that pretty clearly inspired Project Stardust, which was Star Wars Empire at War. What I initially intended to be just a small little stint where I'd jump on and maybe play through one of the campaigns and call it quits, quickly spiraled out of control into me playing probably over 10 hours of Empire at War and playing through every single campaign in the game on hard mode, and I had a ton of fun with it. So I just wanted to jump on and talk about my love for this game, along with highly recommending you to go check it out yourself if you haven't already. It's quite an old game, with it releasing in 2006. That said, because of the Steam Summer Sale right now, you can get the Empire at War Gold Pack on Steam for $7, which is pretty much chump change for the amount of content that you're getting here. And while it's not on sale, it's roughly $20, which I don't necessarily think is entirely worth it. So if you're gonna go buy this game, I'd recommend waiting for it to be on sale. But even if it's not, there's still a lot on display here. I think it just barely inches into being worth $20, even though it's such an old game. That said, I want to break up this video into a few parts, and the first one is just going to be a general overview of the game itself. Star Wars Empire at War is a real-time strategy game. I don't have a huge amount of experience in the genre, but I love StarCraft. I played a lot of Warcraft 3 when I was a kid, along with playing some of the Command & Conquer games, and of course Empire at War. As an RTS game, though, Star Wars Empire at War varies radically in a couple of different ways. The first is obviously based on the game mode that you pick. I'm not really going to be covering multiplayer here because multiplayer is pretty much dead as a doornail, surprise, surprise, and also if you jumped in and did find someone to play with, they would probably be an Omega Sweat that hasn't quit the game since 2006, so good luck with that. Never mind the fact that I'm almost certain that the balance in this game is horrific, which is fine for the single-player experience. Anyways, if you just jump into a quick instant action skirmish game, you can pick between playing in a space battle or playing in a ground battle. Space battles pit you along with one enemy faction on a large 2D plane where you need to manage your resources, your tech level on your space station, and of course your units to try to prevail. Income is always going up, but you can increase the income that you get by activating little areas of the map that'll get you more money. This is a constant across space battles and ground battles. Your tech level is on your space station, and it determines which ships that you can actually buy. It also increases the amount of health as well as the amount of hard points or weapons and such that are on your space station itself, making it stronger. So you want to balance having units to fight off the enemy units along with being able to tech up your space station so that way you can get better units and win the arms race. All while trying to micromanage building turrets along with securing asteroid bases in order to get more money. Overall, it's a super interesting experience, and most importantly, it's a super cinematic experience, as there's really not any other game out there for Star Wars that can give you these sort of large-scale battles on a scale as grand as this one. Now, when we get into ground battles, this is more of the black sheep of the series as far as I understand. There's a lot of people who are not huge fans of the ground battles in this game, and honestly, I can't totally say I blame them. I don't hate the ground battles by any rights, but they're definitely not on the same level as the space battles. Both in the idea of the grand scale, where these battles are a lot more tight-knit and smaller scale, but also, more importantly, that the amount of cheese and just stalling that can be on display here when it comes to the ground battles is, well, it's rough. This is where I get a chance to talk about the AI of this game, because I simultaneously think that the AI does a fantastic job, and it's also infuriating as all hell, which kind of lends itself to being a good thing in my opinion. The thing about the balance of the game is that Empire at War heavily rewards you for being patient, setting up ambushes, and waiting for things to come to you. Whether it be the turret system, which allows you to build turrets on build pads that give you a massive advantage over any sort of units that might show up, an anti-vehicle turret alone being able to almost take out an entire brigade of tanks by itself, and it's just sitting there in a choke point where if the vehicles want to get past there, they have to go through the anti-vehicle turret. If there are two build pads right next to each other, then there can be an anti-vehicle turret and an anti-infantry turret, meaning that there's borderline no way to get past the turrets. I say borderline because there are ways to get past the turrets. You can get siege vehicles that can fire arcing shots or barrages of missiles, and those have enough range to take out the turrets. But you can probably imagine that when you give a unit even more range than the already large range on the turrets, and these units deploy themselves, well, once again, we're leading to the AI potentially just setting up these mounted guns and then chilling next to them and forcing you to just send meat wave after meat wave into the enemy forces. And because the game is of course determined by who kills all of the enemies on the map, yeah, you can see how this becomes a problem pretty quickly. And on this topic, we can sort of get into the Galactic Conquest game mode, which sort of exacerbates all of these problems that I've been mentioning. Galactic Conquest is basically micromanaged simulator. You need to try to figure out where enemies are going to attack from and fortify those planets accordingly so that way you don't get attacked. You can build space stations and buildings on planets in order to help you defend them, so that way you don't always need to have a large fleet somewhere at all times. And there's always the understanding that you need a fleet in order to attack the enemy planets, and if you go there and you lose, then you're very open for a counterattack because that fleet can't be used in any sort of retaliatory strikes if the enemy decides to attack you. The issue, of course, once again stems down from the fact that the AI has unlimited patience, and the AI will simply sit its units next to turrets, or sit its units next to artillery vehicles, that they literally will never move forwards. They will just leave their artillery vehicles where they deploy them forever. And trying to break that line, especially if there's a shield generator, forget about it. I had this one round on Tatooine during the Rebel campaign, which the campaigns we'll get to in just a second, where Tatooine is a rebel-friendly planet, and it lends itself to a really cool mechanic, which is that the indigenous people of the planet will oftentimes fight for or against certain factions. So some places that are loyal to the Empire will have Imperial citizens that will fight for you, and they'll spawn into these buildings with an unlimited supply. Obviously, they're much weaker than your normal soldiers, but it's an unlimited amount of units until that structure is destroyed. And as Tatooine on the Rebels side, you get a whole bunch of structures with people in them along with Jawas, and you can just send wave after wave after wave of people into the enemy base. But in this certain instance, the enemy base had a shield and a whole bunch of artillery tanks. So I couldn't get anything anywhere near the base. The shield generator itself was inside the shield, which doesn't seem like a very good balance decision. You would think the shield generator would be outside the shield, so I could break it, but no. So I can't break the shield generator, I can't break the shield, and charging into the shield generator artillery units is suicide. So my options were just meat wave, meat wave, meat wave, meat wave, because if they're not gonna move, I might as well just send in these unlimited guys. Eventually, for some strange reason, I was able to destroy the shield generator with an artillery tank that was able to hit it through the shield. I think it was a bug. That's not supposed to be how it works, but thank God it meant that I could actually win the round. But either way, you start to get the idea here. Sometimes the AI just hunkers down, and that's just it. And it gets even worse when we get on to the Forces of Corruption expansion, which I'll be talking about more in depth later, where they've added bunkers around on practically every single map, and the AI is obsessed with these bunkers. They'll throw squad upon squad upon squad of infantry into these bunkers, and the devs got really carried away with the health pools on these things. I don't know whose idea it was to give the bunker like 8 billion health, but come on, guys, come on! While on the topic of AI, I suppose we can also make mention of the fact that the AI has perfect micro and also doesn't really suffer from a lot of the pathfinding issues that this game generally stems from because, well, they're an AI. Empire at War's pathfinding for its units is not the best. It's passable, but there are definitely times where you'll tell something to move somewhere and it will just do something completely outlandish and nothing at all what you wanted to do, sometimes leading to it just charging into enemy lines and killing itself, or just starting to do donuts right on the spot. It can be wonky at times. It's especially frustrating in space battles because the pathfinding generally tries to avoid nebulas and asteroid fields. Nebulas basically will EMP your shields, along with making it so that way you can't use any of your active abilities. And asteroid fields, surprise, surprise, if a large ship flies through it, will take damage over time as it moves through the asteroid field. So it makes sense that they would want to pathfind around these areas. But oftentimes, if you're trying to go through one of these areas, it'll be a real bitch to try to get the AI to do it. And even when it does start to do it, again, sometimes it'll just start spinning around on the spot or trying to angle itself in some weird ways when you try to attack something. It's always very odd. Now, in terms of the campaign modes themselves, this is the vast majority of what I ended up doing while playing the game, and also, hands down, the most fun I had with the game. So I'd highly recommend giving all of the campaigns a shot. The first time around, I decided to jump into the Empire campaign on hard mode, and hard mode, when I was starting out, was an understatement and a half. I don't have it recorded because I didn't initially intend to make a video on this, so I only have the latter end of the campaign recorded. But during the beginning of my play sessions, I got destroyed. And I think a lot of it stems from not quite understanding the mechanics of the game when I was first starting out, and not min-maxing a couple things that really would help you out. Because the thing about the campaign mode that differs from Galactic Conquest is there are specific objectives that you want to get accomplished that you're told that you need to accomplish, and in between those objectives, planets will slowly open up that you'll be able to conquer. And the thing is that planets that are able to be conquered will also have the AI on them trying to kill you. And the longer you leave these planets around, the more attacks that the AI can constantly send at your forces. Not only that, but once you've demolished all of the current planets in your way and get to the main objective, if you don't actually go to the main objective, you've basically got unlimited prep time to do whatever you want. This is something I didn't understand on the first campaign, and it led to a nightmare. I just got attacked after attacked after attacked. I was trying to put fleets on all of my different planets to make sure I wasn't constantly caught flat-footed, and it was brutal. But this in of itself is a design flaw, because like I said, once I did figure this out, a lot of these problems with the game, or not even problems, but difficulties that I had, were completely thrown out the window, and in fact, completely reversed. Because towards the end of my Empire campaign, I was entirely unbeatable, with giant fleets of several Star Destroyers, and basically only a couple of planets available to conquer because I'd already gotten all the other ones. And any time that I had time for myself, I could use that to build up a ton of mining facilities, to get a ton of income, to basically make it so I had unlimited money, unlimited ships, unlimited ground units. There was just no way that I could lose. It was impossible. And I do think some of that is, of course, by design, especially considering that at the end of the campaign, you end up building the Death Star, and you're tasked with going around and destroying the final remaining Rebellion holdouts, which is this incredible feeling power fantasy where you just slowly make your way around the galaxy, crushing any resistance. But of course, when I went on my way to do the Rebellion campaign, I already knew this stuff from the start, and because of that, I was able to basically cheese out the AI in every way possible and start the game at a huge advantage comparatively. There's some other stuff that you can do, of course, like the fact that when you're being talked to by one of the characters in the game and telling you about the current mission, you're able to speed up time and build a whole bunch of stuff, and obviously, because the people are talking, the enemy can't attack you yet, because if they did, then it would interrupt the dialogue, so while the dialogue is playing, you can put yourself even further ahead. And it's just cheese stuff like this that you eventually start to get the hang of, and it alleviates the difficulty greatly. Now, that said, one of the things that I loved about the Rebellion campaign that contrasted greatly from the Empire campaign is that while the Empire campaign's final act is more of a crushing of the final resistance, the Rebellion campaign is a desperate bid to attempt to destroy the Death Star, and it really does feel like a desperate bid. It's pretty obvious to me that their intention was to try to make it so that way you keep losing ground and losing planets until eventually you're able to stop it, and it probably would have been more thematic had that happened, but of course, like I said earlier, I had cheesed myself up a giant fleet and had everything ready to go. So while this biggest fleet in Empire history was coming to try to capture Mon Calamari, so that way I couldn't build the pretty colossally overpowered Mon Calamari cruisers that make mincework out of Imperial Star Destroyers, I stonewalled that Imperial fleet at the very first area that it went to, and then slowly watched the Death Star make its way towards Yavin 4, which of course I would end up intercepting, trying to hide Red Squadron in the corner of the map so that way I could win the battle and destroy the Death Star, ending the campaign. But this final act of the game really felt hectic and chaotic, not something that I expected, and I really enjoyed it. Now, something that you may have noticed that I haven't talked about quite yet is the expansion pack for Empire at War, Forces of Corruption. This expansion pack adds a whole bunch of units to the Rebellion and Empire side, along with adding an entirely new faction, the Zan Consortium. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is a semantics issue. Is it consortium, consortium, consortium? I don't know, because the voice actors in the game itself, some pronounce it consortium, some pronounce it consortium, and I looked it up and Google says consortium. So I guess all three are right. I don't know. I'm going to call it the consortium because to me that just sounds better. The main characters of the game constantly call it the consortium. I don't think it matters, but I thought it was funny to bring it up nonetheless. Anyways, the Zan Consortium is hilariously overpowered. I suppose because they were adding this as the quote-unquote DLC faction, they decided to make it broke as shit. But yeah, the Consortium just sort of dumpsters on everything. I could go one by one over all of the different units that just like break the game, and I guess we could do a speed round. Droidekas are fast as shit and counter pretty much every single unit aside from the extremely large units like AT-ATs. The repulsor tanks say they're weak against AT-ATs, but absolutely destroy them, so I don't know what the hell is going on there. Along with being able to run over infantry and obliterate light vehicles, making these again a borderline one-size-fits-all. Once you get the disruptors unlocked for the assault squad, they just become the best infantry unit in the game. Uri Fen, one of the heroes, is able to self-heal himself at all times, along with having a stealth camouflage ability that is basically an invincibility button. Stealth camouflage appeared to be a big new thing that they added into Forces of Corruption, and they clearly didn't think it through very much. Because once you camouflage yourself, you're basically immortal, with only a select few units being able to see you while you're in camouflage. So you can cheese out a whole lot of stuff by either just walking past it, or going camouflage right before something's about to shoot you. You can camo right behind turrets, start killing it, and then before it can fully turn around, camo again, and then it just goes back to what it's doing. Camo breaks so much shit, it's incredible. And the best part is, some genius thought it would be a great idea to make it so that way the cooldown for the stealth camo is quicker than the time that it's active for. You'd think that it would be the opposite, right? Like, for every second that you're in camo, you have to wait 2 seconds, but it's more like for every second you're in camo, you have to wait half a second to get that second back, which makes no sense and promotes the cheese even further. And this has all just been land battles so far. When we get into space, they have the need a really big gun ship, which is a borderline sniper ship that destroys enemy capital ships and space stations. The Keldabi battleship is able to completely obliterate any smaller frigate-based craft. So combine these two together along with any sort of the cruisers that can do anti-fighter capabilities and you're basically just gonna beat pretty much anything. But that's not all. The Star Vipers, the default fighters for the Consortium, are hilariously broken. And that's because they have the active ability to deploy buzz droids, which instantly kill any fighters that come into contact with them, meaning that they automatically win against any fighter class in the game. But the buzz droids aren't just broken against fighters, they're broken against larger ships too, because some genius thought it would be a great idea to make it so the buzz droids could do damage to some of the smaller frigate class ships. I mean, I'm sure I'll have clips on screen right now, but you could just throw a bunch of buzz droids on top of an acclimator and it gets vaporized. Victory Star Destroyer? Nope, it's gone. Now, thankfully, the buzz droids can't hit larger capital ships or the space stations, but If that's your only option against the default fighter class of enemies in the game, that's horrifying. The bombers have capabilities of getting jammers, which will block enemy missiles from being able to hit them, along with being able to bomb, and appearing to have a secondary gunner position that's able to shoot stuff while the bomber is currently bombing. It's just like, there's so much stuff here that's so broken, it's hysterical. I just wanted to get that out of the way before we talked about the campaign itself because I thought it was really funny. But the thing about the Xan Consortium campaign is that it varies radically from the other two, and I think it really shows what an expansion pack for a game should be. While the first two campaigns in the original Empire at War were basically borderline retellings of the storyline leading up to Episode 4 A New Hope, the Forces of Corruption storyline is instead its own sort of unique thing, playing in tandem to the events going up to and going slightly past Episode 6 Return of the Jedi. The story follows the adventures of Tiber Xan as he attempts to rebuild his criminal empire and get information about Emperor Palpatine's hidden vaults around the systems that will be able to effectively put him on top of the criminal underworld. Now, I don't know why Tiber Xan bothers with the criminal underworld and not just owning the whole damn galaxy, because again, all of his shit is so broken that playing the campaign often just became a complete cakewalk even on hard mode. Well, of course, until we get to the cheesy missions where it just throws you and a couple of heroes against basically the world. But these missions in their own right were a lot of fun and shows again just how much the campaign can vary compared to some of the previous ones. Missions on display like trying to get through a droid factory to shut it down and then take control of it feel really cinematic. And what helps with these cinematics a lot is the large introduction of in-game cutscenes that are added in between while you're playing a lot of these missions. These cutscenes aren't really anything special from the visual perspective. In fact, sometimes they're just downright hilarious.
Halt, thieves! Return what you've taken and I promise a quick and painless death.
You must have no idea who I am.
I know precisely who you are and the reason you're here.
He's a teleporter.
But they help in breaking up the pacing and not making it feel like just another Empire at War match. That said, there was one large issue with a lot of these cutscenes, which is of course the fact that aside from the first one, you can't skip any of them. And the saving system in Empire at War basically forces you to save scum your way through the entire game, because the autosaves only autosave at the very start of the mission, which means that if you play through 80% of the mission and it takes you up to 15 minutes of doing it and then you lose, then you have to restart all the way from the beginning if you haven't manually saved. And every single one of those cutscenes you have to watch again, which at times was enough to drive me mad when I would forget to save. Overall though, the final climactic battle over the aptly named Eclipse Super Star Destroyer, wink wink nudge nudge, that has a super laser akin to the Death Star that you can use in this massive all-out three-way battle was so cool and well worth playing through the campaign to get to. Overall, Empire at War was just a really good time, and I'm sure there are a lot of things in here that I simply didn't get a chance to talk about. Things like the mod scene being able to add huge amount of content. Entirely new factions, graphics overhauls, pathfinding improvements, all the whole 9 yards. And while I didn't do any modding for the sake of this video because I just wanted to play the game and again didn't even intend to have a video out on the game, I still think that it's worth mentioning. And shockingly, some of the modding scene is still alive and well, with mods continuing to come out to this day. Overall, my general consensus is we just don't get games like this nowadays, and the whole Star Wars game drought continues to be, well, kind of depressing. But Empire at War is a good light to look back on. An incredibly fun game made with obvious love for the franchise. And the fact that Petroglyph, the developers behind it, decided to go back not too long ago to improve this now nearly 20-year-old game shows how much the people behind it still, to some extent, care about this fantastic game. Like I said, game's a ton of fun. It's absolutely worth your time at currently $7 on Steam, so if you see this before July 10th, give it a go. Anyways, with that said, I am wrapping up here. So if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.